What's going on, everybody? Appreciate everybody stopping in once again. As always, we are coming to you from the greatest country in the world, the great Republic of Texas, deep in the heart of the Lone Star State, Dallas, Texas, more specifically. If you guys aren't already subscribers, please consider smashing that subscribe button as well as hitting that bell icon so you guys don't miss an episode in the future, whether we go live or put something out recorded, whichever goes first, however that happens. Also, don't forget to smash that like button. That really helps out with the algorithm as well. If you guys are on the go and want to check us out, you can find us on Spotify, Google, Apple Podcasts, as well as iHeartRadio and Amazon Music at Truth Defender Podcast. If you guys love what we do here on the show and you're feeling generous, consider sharing the show with a friend, family member, colleague, all that good stuff. Just watch out with work because we all know how they can be. If you guys have any questions for myself or our guests, show or topic recommendations, you can always shoot us an email at thetruthDefender1776@gmail.com. All links to our social media are down below. I hope everybody's been doing pretty good. We're all kind of hanging by a thread here lately. Obviously, all that crap's been going on in LA with all the fires and stuff. So that's just the latest, I guess, shit that's been going on lately this year. We kind of hit this year fast, hot, and heavy. Didn't really have a time to breathe, after last year. So doesn't look like we're going to have any of that this time either anytime soon. So see what happens. I don't hold out too much hope for 2025. I kind of figured this year was going to be kind of shitty when it started off, and it didn't disappoint. So I feel like the only reason why we ever have our next guest, Charlie Robinson, on the show is when shit kind of hits the fan and we're just all kind of in a weird depressive state afterwards. But I like to get his perspective on things that happened over the past year and what to look forward to in the year to come. So without further ado, Mr. Charlie Robinson, how you doing, sir?
Good. Yeah. Well, when you write a book, Controlled Demolition of the American Empire, and then it plays out like you said it would, it's kind of frustrating. But
yeah, well, you know what? So
what's crazier is that just how many people don't see it too. That's kind of the thing. You just would assume that everybody can see what's going on, and yet there's a huge segment of the population that is still in denial that we have a massive problem in this country right now.
Yeah, it's pretty crazy that you could see all these things kind of playing out at the same time. And then you have a lot of people that are just like, it's just a coincidence or just shit happens. Like, well, yeah, okay, I guess if you're not plugged in,
does, sometimes, but
there's a lot of people that I know that just aren't plugged in. Like they just don't care. Like I wish I had that kind of ignorance in my life where I just would see everything like, shit happens, like whatever, like let's just go camping or hike. Like I wish I could just do that. Like, that'd be great. But like there's things that are happening underneath it all while you think nothing is connected and all that kind of stuff. Everybody's just like, it doesn't happen. But at the same time, people in control and in charge bank on the fact that people just aren't plugged in whatsoever. Like, what's the latest reality show going on? Whose ass is fatter on the Kardashians and like all that kind of stuff, right? And it's great. Like I said, I wish I could just do the same thing, but I don't know, man. Like, how do we make sense of? I mean, last year, so like obviously, I was saying we usually only have you back because shit hits the fan all the time. So it's kind of like last year was a shit show. Like, what do you think? And then like the next year goes by, and then hey, last year was an even bigger shit show. What do you think? It's like this year's feels like it's the biggest so far.
Well, it's the earliest so far, with it being January 1st. All the activities going on. I took one look at that picture when they had the burning Cybertruck right next to the Trump logo, and I went, that's Operation Gladio stuff right there. When you've got that perfectly framed professional shot of it that shows you basically Elon Musk, his reputation, his product, his car on fire right next to Donald Trump, his new best friend. It's just not coincidental. And the fact that it was captured on, in a perfect picture is part of the psychological warfare campaign. And so you start to dig into, like, well, who is this guy? What's his ties? Well, he's got ties to Fort Bragg. Well, what's going on there? The psychological warfare center is based there. Ding, 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 ding. What about the other guy in New Orleans? Where is he? He was Fort Bragg too. What about the guy on the golf course that was shooting at Trump? Fort Bragg too. I mean, they're all coming out of the same spot. They're all in Afghanistan at the same time. I mean, there's a lot of coincidences, and I'm willing to accept a few coincidences. I am. I have. We've all experienced them where you go, nobody would believe me if I, but at how many times do you need to see it? And then, I mean, I'll take it as far as that they released Ghost in the Machine, the 3.5-minute clip back in 2022, the 4th Psych Division of Fort Bragg. They released it on the internet at the very end with a web address to them, I mean, it's not speculation that it was from them, that they're the ones that did it. They put their own website domain at the very end. They want you to know it's them. And they said all the world's a stage. And then this goes on and this happens. So excuse me if I have some questions, about these things, especially when you know what to look for and you understand that it's a hit and run psychological operation. It's boom. It dominates the headlines for 4 days and then it's gone.
Yeah.
That's done its job. And so that this is, I don't know if this is Trump specific. I don't know if this is welcome back, Donnie. We're running Operation Gladio 2025 America style on you. I mean, maybe, but I know it's happening. I just don't know if it's because of him. I don't know if it would be happening if Kamala were installed, but it's happening regardless. So whether it's specifically tailored to him to welcome him back, or it's a sign of things to come, or it's strategy of tension, Operation Gladio style, where they just create, a very unhappy population in order to manage their vote, then 2025, get ready for it.
Yeah. I was spending a little bit of time trying to connect the dots here and there. I mean, I heard a lot of people talking about, the Trump Tower thing in Vegas and all the stuff in New Orleans, and then the guy from Ukraine that was trying to shoot at Trump on the golf course and all this crap. And he was in the Ukraine fighting back and forth, and then he came back. And a lot of people seem to be coming back and forth throughout Ukraine and here, and they're just kind of like bringing weapons into the country and just kind of hanging around. And then, like you mentioned, 4th Psychological Operation Command is at Fort Bragg. That plays a huge role. And everybody's always like, oh, yeah, well, there's thousands of soldiers that go through Fort Bragg every year and all that stuff. Yeah, I get it.
And most of them are uninvolved,
Yeah, and I could have been
Tony Arterburn. I just talked to Tony Arterburn. He said, I spent 5 years there when he was in the Army. He's like, I met my ex-wife there. He's like, it's a great place, but there is a psych warfare component to it. That is undeniable. That's where Delta Force is. That's where JSOC is. That's where a lot of these really super dangerous organizations that don't necessarily answer to Congress are stationed. And there's a lot of fuckery afoot in these places when you're talking about manipulating public opinion. And it's easier to control 1 million people than kill 1 million people, as the big new Brzezinski would say. So you know that it's a possibility. Then you take and layer on top of that Obama's Smith-Mundt Modernization Act of 2012, which legalized propaganda to be used inside America on Americans. And so, you start going, well, I wonder why they would do such a thing as changing the law to make it so it's legal to use propaganda. Oh, I don't know, because they intend to use some propaganda. And then you just look at from 2013, that's when it was passed in the National Defense Authorization Act. And then you look from that point forward, and every story that you read or every narrative that you've heard from that point forward, including all these bullshit wars in Ukraine and Israel and all that stuff, all of them, you have to look through the filter of this is legalized propaganda. And once you have determined that you have a new relationship with your information, that you now view it as legalized propaganda, then it's like, well, I'll make up my mind whether or not I'm gonna believe anything they say. Or, if it's good propaganda, it's like 90% true and like 10% nonsense, and then that's just enough to throw it off. But whatever. I mean, this is and the average person who's not really into this stuff, they're completely ill-equipped to deal with trying to decipher where the bullshit is in an article that sounds very real and is probably mostly real, but is just a little bit off. So, and we've been seeing this in the podcast world recently with the Sean Ryan stuff and the other lady who keeps going on all the shows from the ex-CIA talking about how if you question 9/11, it emboldens the terrorists. It's like, dude, you guys are still working for the CIA. Stop this. This is embarrassing.
I was just about to say, do you believe any of that?
No,
Stuff
none.
where he was
Not
saying
any
the
of it.
dude was emailing him and all kinds of things about whatever. It's just odd because it was like the guy was reaching out and he was like, I want to get on Fox tonight, or I want to get on this show and this show, make it happen. And I got all this stuff to say and I got all these things to reveal. And he was dealing with like all the drone stuff that was going on with China and all this stuff.
Yeah.
And it's like, wait a minute, like, and and then he drives all the way to Vegas and blows his Cybertruck up, and it's like, what the hell's going on?
Yeah, there's a lot of questions because it's nonsensical. It doesn't really make sense, and that's part of the strategy of tension, which is if this is a NATO operation as well, which it more than likely has some sort of NATO component to it. That is then the point is that it doesn't make sense. The point is that it is random violence in different places. Like what they would do in the 60s and 70s in Western Europe would be like they'd shoot up a grocery store in Belgium during the Gladio days, and then they did it in Buffalo, and they would set off a bomb in a train station in Bologna in the 70s or 60s, and then they'd set off one in London in the 7/7 bombing. And so they're not even creative. I mean, they do the same things kind of over and over again. And it's usually NATO behind it, and they're running these false flag, ops because that's what they do.
Yeah,
It's because it's incredibly impactful, and it really destabilizes. It keeps the herd scared and controllable and dependent on government and dependent on the state and dependent on the military or whatever, like whatever it is, it just, if you can keep everybody scared, then they're more controllable. And so the bombings will continue until morale improves.
yeah. I mean, so New Orleans was kind of blamed on ISIS early on. I'm not sure if that really kind of holds up. And yeah, the FBI coming up saying that it wasn't terrorism and this and that, and it's just like, all right, well, the whole ISIS flag thing was kind of conveniently planted. It's just like,
Yeah,
like 9/11 freaking
fresh out of the
passports and
box, like still has the creases on the brand new ISIS flag that they just got out from eBay. Yeah. I mean, it felt very staged. Not that the event didn't happen. I mean, but like again, I'm always looking for the photographs and pictures of shoes and pictures of bicycles and all that. That's from the Ole Damagard school of Damagarding it, right? Where you look at the crime scene pictures after these events, and you'll see what the media puts out. And a lot of times it'll be these symbolic pictures, like a pile of shoe, like a kid's shoe on the ground, or a bicycle just on the ground, like sort of so that you feel like there used to be a kid on that bicycle and now he's dead. There used to be a kid wearing that shoe, but now he's dead, And so, and so they use these props, and so sometimes you'll see like the new one will come out. You'll go, oh, shoes, holy shit, right there. The LA Times headline, is a picture of shoes. You go, they're doing it again. They're doing it again. So if you're like Ole, and you've been studying these things for a long time, it's like reading hieroglyphics, or it's like you can find like all these different messages that they send in there. Lady with a pair of sweatpants that says Las Vegas down the side, and then 2 weeks later you have a Las Vegas thing. Ole starts calling it out, gets an email from a guy who's running these operations saying, "We like your work, you're doing really good. We do hide messages in there. Take a look at something like this." And he's like, "Holy shit, they're counter surveilling him," you know. So it's an interesting time to be paying attention. If you are, you're gonna see like the narratives inside the operation, and it's wild.
Yeah. I found one of the, I guess like the best example of that would be, just kind of on a side note, would be Matthew McConaughey and Uvalde. When all that Uvalde shooting happened, he came out with his wife on a newspaper. I don't know what it was, but he came out holding these green Jordans that supposedly some kid was wearing when she got shot, and then all of a sudden he like had them on the newspaper and he was wearing them and all this stuff, and I was like, all right. That was just like an off the wall one. I was like, all right, cool. See what we're doing here. That was wild. But it was like, it was like out there, like he was put like a whole foundation together behind it or something. It was like these green Jordans that this little girl was supposedly wearing, and like he made it like a thing, like on t-shirts, and it was like all right, guy, let's relax here for a second.
Dance, monkey, dance. You know, there's some controller with some great blackmail on him going, you're gonna go out there with those shoes.
Yeah,
you're gonna raise money for this kid. You're gonna mock them in these shoes.
It was pretty wild. It's like, all right, it was the whole thing, but I mean, apparently he's from there or something like that. So whatever, it made sense, I guess. But it made sense to everybody else. But yeah, I guess like the common theme in all of this would be, so July 13th, 2024, Trump is shot at, or shot in the ear, whatever everybody thinks happened to him at that point.
Right.
The kid that the kid that supposedly did it and got killed in a BlackRock commercial. The guy in Ukraine that tried to shoot him in BlackRock commercial early on. What's the deal if that's the case? Like, where's the play with the whole BlackRock thing? I mean, I know they control pretty much most of the world, but they're going to be building in Ukraine, and I'm pretty sure they're going to be building in LA and all that kind of stuff as well. But building in Maui as well. So, like the whole Smart LA 2028 stuff. But I mean, what's BlackRock's play with? I'm obviously trying to get rid of Trump so he doesn't stop all these wars in Ukraine and stuff. But I mean, is it just that obvious? I mean, they just were trying to get rid of him so he just wouldn't be the president.
He represents a threat to a certain established, certain group. He's his own, syndicate, but he represents the end of the gravy train for a group of people who've had it their way for a long time. And so they're not above killing the guy. Of course not. I mean, they are extremely dangerous. They're like a cornered animal that's losing its power and knows that it could be, they know the crimes that they've committed. And so they assume that at some point they may be revealed. They're the ones that like to hold this evidence over other people, so they know how the game works. So of course they're rightly freaking out because he represents a variable. Now, will he do anything to them? I don't think so. And I don't have any hope for these people. I think it's all professional wrestling, but they seem to think that there's a possibility he may go scorched earth on them. And so, it's a matter of self-preservation in some respects, because if you're Adam Schiff and you or Lindsey Graham and you know that they've got the goods on you in some compromised situation that is just reprehensible, that is sort of the sort of blackmail that doesn't have an expiration date on it, you got to get rid of this guy because there's a possibility he might take you out. You've got, so these guys know how the game works. I'm frankly, I'm surprised he made it as far as he did. I mean, we've got, we still have the inauguration coming up, but I'm assuming he'll make it there. But I think the hatred in that group towards Trump is real. I think they legitimately don't like him, and I think they fear him because he's unpredictable in some ways, and that is just, they can't afford that. They are guilty of too many crimes to have any sort of loose ends, and they know how this stuff works. So like tying up the loose end of Trump solves a ton of problems for them. That's why they tried to throw him in jail and tried to bankrupt him and do all this stuff. And I know that there's a professional wrestling component to this, right? But their hatred towards him, I think, is very real. They just don't like his type. He's not one of them. He's not part of the secret societies. That's what Newt Gingrich said. And I put it in the Octopus book. And I thought it was the most insightful thing that I've ever heard Newt Gingrich say. And Trump did have a hard time because he wasn't a part of the secret societies, which means you're controllable. He's controllable in other ways, I'm sure. Don't get me wrong. I mean, his allegiance to Israel is disgusting, but he's not controllable by that faction for some reason. So.
Yeah, it was. I think if Trump would never have won, I mean, obviously, if he had never won in 2015 and 16, the plan would have played out pretty much like it always had been, and we would have been in this kind of state in the world a lot sooner. But the fact that he won kind of the first time put a little stop on them. And then when they finally got in again, they knew he was going to run. So they were like, we need to win, try to force through all this crap that we were going to do that we've been seeing as fast as we can, just in case he gets back in. We try to milk everything for what it's worth, because once he gets back in again, I mean, they had to have known that all the shit that they're pulling as far as policies and sending billions of dollars to Ukraine and Israel and money laundering and all kinds of things that was going to come back to bite him in the ass, and it did. Now, if they would have let him win in 2020, I don't think anything would have happened to them. He would have kept kind of, I guess, not dragging his feet, but everything would have just kind of gone by business as usual, like it always has been. And he would have finished this year. Somebody else would have got in and things would have just continued. But because of the fact that they put him through so much shit, try to kill him and all this crap, like now it's like, all right, motherfuckers, like we're gonna, now it's on, like,
I hope he does. I mean, I hope he rounds all these people up and puts them in prison. Because they are reprehensible and they do deserve it, and they were conspiring against him, and they did try to kill him, and they did try to bankrupt him, and they did try to do all these things. But that being said, I don't really hold out too much hope that's actually going to happen, because again, they will just remove him from the planet at some point, Kennedy style. Maybe he'll be the president, and and they'll take him out. I mean, to think you're protected from these people is delusional. He's got to make a calculation at some point. It is not worth it for me to possibly get murdered by putting Hillary Clinton actually in prison. I mean, and there's a list of 50 people before him who have fucked around and found out with regard to dealing with the Clintons. So, I mean, he makes a calculation here and there. So, if he went scorched earth on these people, I would totally understand. After what they put him through, I would totally understand. But I think he's got to make some calculations as far as like keeping my family alive. And that is, of course, never discussed by him publicly, these sorts of things. But, I mean, he's under constant threat of death by these people, because there's no line they won't cross. You know what I mean? Like, kill a sitting president, of course. Like, not only would they do it, think of the sort of reputation that they would have if they did it. So he's in a dangerous spot. So he's got to be careful. And part of me would love it if he just rounded them all up and actually sent them to Guantanamo Bay on like the Q stuff. But that's like revenge fantasy.
Yeah.
Trump hope porn, I just hope he lets Ross Ulbricht out of prison. I hope he keeps that campaign promise and lets Ross out, because that's some nonsense. And that guy was railroaded by the Obama Justice Department. And Trump ought to know, if anybody should know how it feels to be the target of a horseshit justice system like the DOJ, it would be Trump. So I would hope he would have sympathy for this poor guy rotting away in prison on a double life plus 40 for running the Silk Road, for being one of the people running the Silk Road, and promising to let him out when he gets in there. If he doesn't do that, man, I will be extremely disappointed. Not surprised, but I'll be disappointed. And it'll be just another thing for me to despise politicians because of. But but if he does pardon him and let him out, credit where credit's due, I will make sure to talk about that. We'll see. That's about the only thing I'm looking forward to.
Yeah.
Yeah.
We'll see what happens. I don't know. I'm just looking to. I hope Kash Patel really closes down the FBI building his first day in, and that's like the one thing I'm looking forward to the most. I was just in DC about 2 months ago, and it's just, I don't know. You could just feel the shitbaggery that goes on there when you walk around the streets, and it's like, man, like I went to the FBI building and stuff like that, and had some things to do, and I was just like, just looking at everybody in there, and I was just like, fuck all of you people. That is just like, it's just one of those things. It's like, all right, we got to get out of here. So we went around and did the usual sightseeing stuff, whatever. But like, I was done with that place. As soon as I got there, I was just like, well, I don't want to be here anymore. You just feel it like through the whole city. It's just like, this place is just, bad. So it's wild.
Yeah. It's a sick place with a real, it's a magnet for people who like power and money and control. And the types of people who like that are psychopathic in nature. And so of course it's going to have a heavy vibe there. It's going to be a real predatory environment. And, it attracts the worst qualities that people that seek like to control other people or manipulate or what. It just draws in a bad batch, as opposed to like some small town in the Midwest who, it's just not their thing. And maybe there's decent people there. Washington, D.C. rewards you with all the things you like, all the things that whatever gets you off, man. If it's like money, they've got that. It's power, they've got that. Of course, if it's like drugs or sex or kids or whatever, man, whatever your thing is, they'll get it. And then they'll get you in a compromising situation. If you talk about it, then they'll Madison Cawthorn you and throw you out.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, I got a sense of, the people, which is, it's crazy because like I was in Bethesda as well. So I was kind of there, had my hotel out there and did all the sightseeing stuff, went to the cathedral, and which is great and all that stuff. But like Bethesda of all places has some of the largest like Venezuelan population of migrants there. I felt like I was like on the border. Like I felt like I was back home. Like I was like, what's going on here? There's taco trucks everywhere and people walking down the street and talking Spanish. And I was like, what the heck? So I was like, all right. Like that was cool. I was like, all right, cool. Like I know these people. Like I don't speak Spanish obviously as well. So we're talking back and forth and hanging out with all the people there. But I was like, Bethesda of all places, like DC. It's just like, all right, well, whatever. But that was pretty wild. It was pretty cool.
Were they illegal? Like they were like
probably
brought in, like
yeah.
or
yeah. Oh yeah.
Yeah.
There was like a lot of construction
voting blue.
Yeah. Oh yeah. It's a lot of construction stuff, and you see like a lot of day laborers and stuff like that, and a lot of people hanging around the street corners looking for work and stuff. So I was like, I mean, Bethesda is like a nicer area, right? Yeah. So
there's a lot of money there,
a lot of crime, too much there, but it's like really like there of all places and stuff. So I was like, all right, cool, whatever. I don't live here. I'm out of here anyway. So
yeah,
we were gone, but it was just funny, but yeah, I mean, so what was the whole play with, I guess, FEMA and all these clowns? Like, obviously the hurricane stuff that happened in North Carolina. Like, what was the play? I mean, what's the play? Maui, $770 per person. LA, freaking Joe said $770 something also for them. North Carolina was the same thing. Like, where do they think this was going to get them? Like, do they think they're helping? They can't think they're helping, right? Are they obviously trying to punish these people, or like, what's the deal?
Yeah, I think it's meant to be an insult. I think it's meant to sort of, especially because the messaging that's coming out of the White House during the Biden administration has been like, listen, look at all this money we're giving to Ukraine. Look at all of it. It's just billions and billions of dollars. And they want you to know that. And then they come out and they give these people an intentionally insulting offer and then claim, like, feign like poverty, like, oh, we're just out of money. We just, we just don't have it in the budget. But I would suggest it's part of a demoralization campaign, to just crush their spirit. Because these events, these fires, they're being made to happen. They're not accidental. It's not like random brush fires. I lived in LA for 25 years. I know damn well about the brush fire danger, and I know when it happens. It happens in July and August and September. It does not happen in January. It just doesn't. This is extremely suspicious. And the Maui one has similar fingerprints on it, right? So whenever I start hearing about the United Nations being involved, and I start seeing that they're push for smart cities, and there's some sort of map, and there's some sort of future zoning, and there's, then you have to sort of ask, is this being made to happen? Right. And I'm open to all answers. If someone has a natural, an answer is like, well, it started because of arson. Okay, but who is the arsonist? Some demented lunatic who just escaped out of the nut house? Or is it somebody who's being paid to do this? Because that's a form of this as well. And that's a form of strategy of tension. And that's a form of working with these multilateral agencies like the United Nations and NATO. Because you can destabilize from the inside very easily by creating these natural disasters that everyone just says, well, we can't blame it on anybody. It's a natural disaster. Well, is it natural, or is it being made to happen? Because it offers the perfect cover story, where it's the fires in Lahaina. You're just like, well, I made fires. What do you want me? It's not like they set off a nuclear bomb. I mean, it looked like it, but so you've got this cover story of weather as a weapon. And then you just have to understand who has the motive and opportunity. And then sometimes they give you the motive by talking about Agenda 2030, and they talk about sustainable cities and where they want to build them. And then they start talking about mass transit systems in California and where they're going to go. And then you look at the fire map from 2 years ago, and you go, oh my God, it's exactly it's on top of the map. It's like essentially the same map. And you go, okay, well, I'm not crazy. I'm just noticing that there's some real coincidences happening here. So that's where I am.
It's pretty wild because obviously, like, they're talking about things like DEI and the mayor and governor and all this stuff. Well, the mayor, Mayor Bass, right? So they picked her over. I forgot the other guy's name that was running against her, but that white dude that was like a billionaire also. And
yeah.
He was in charge of like the Palisades Mall and stuff. And sure enough, his entire mall is still standing, and while the entire city burned down to the ground. So
he paid private fire department to stay there and put it out because he has a bunch of money and he's like, I'll be damned if my place is going to burn down. So he hired a team to protect it, and they protected it. And the juxtaposition of him running for mayor, losing to her, him showing how to do it on a small scale, of course, and with his own money, but showing like, hey, if there's a will, there's a way. I'm going to protect this at all costs. And her being out of the country. And then standing in front of the microphone bank and failing to respond to a question for 2 minutes while looking like a defective robot. I mean, this is clown world, George Soros installed. So you have to ask the question, is it? I mean, we know these people are completely incompetent, but is it incompetence or is it malice? Is it malice disguised as incompetence? Because if you were to tell me that Karen Bass would destroy Los Angeles and run it into the ground, I would believe you, because I think she's incompetent. But is she incompetent intentionally? The answer, to, as far as I'm concerned, is yes. That's why George Soros installs these Marxist lunatics in there, in district attorney positions or in mayor's positions. And you could just look at all the places he's financed their campaigns, and there's problems in each one of these cities. And it's like, oh man, oh no, I can't believe our plan didn't work and we destroyed the city. Did your plan work exactly as you intended it to work? Because you guys keep doing the same thing. You guys keep getting the same results. You'd think if you were failing this often, you'd change your strategy, unless you're trying to fail, unless you're trying to destroy this place. And of course, that's kind of what Berwick and I laid out in the controlled demolition of the American empire. It's like there's a variety of ways to soften the empire up, and sometimes internally by this overwhelming incompetence, the shield of incompetence, while it's actually, malice by design.
Yeah, it's wild because she was on TV previously, like, oh well, I like to take a lot of trips overseas, but while I'm mayor, I'm not going to leave one time. I'll never go overseas and this and that. And she's been to like Africa. She was in Africa when this whole thing was happening, but she's traveled around the world and stuff while she's been in a handful of times. And then you got like the whole fire chief thing, and then the captain, and the whole DEI, all these commercials that they were putting out and stuff, which is wild, right? But there's this video that I wanted everybody to see. So this was Captain Wilcox. She's like the LA Fire Department captain, right? So this is on the LA County. I forgot what this is for, but this is like, I guess, for like the hearing impaired people, or like other people that are blind or whatever. So they have like a whole separate thing, but it's still cringy as hell. So let me pull this up here. I think if I can actually pull it up one moment. It's like the wildest thing I've seen in a while. Let's see.
My wife was asking me to watch this guy who was doing the hearing impaired stuff on this like broadcast on. She was watching local news. She's like, "Get in here and watch this guy." I am convinced this guy is making this up. I was watching him. I was like, I think this guy is making it up. I think he's making up half the words. It just didn't look. It looked like it was so fake what he was doing. Do you remember the guy that did it at Nelson Mandela's funeral? And he didn't know sign language. He was just making it up. Like, the greatest thing I've ever seen. The ultimate troll.
So let me see if I can get this pulled up. Oh, I have to bring it down here.
My best friend lost his house in the Pacific Palisades fire, so this is personal to me. Their incompetence. I hope that he will learn to despise the state as much as I do after this. After, it's like, what's it gonna take, man, to come to the realization that these people they hate your guts and want you dead.
Yeah. So can you see this lady on the screen?
I can see it. Yeah.
All right. So check this out.
This ought to be good.
The Los Angeles Fire Department.
So I got no volume on this.
We're here at the Emergency Operations Center with some information for our fellow Angelinos. My name is Captain Jennifer Wilcox. My pronouns are she, her. I am a Caucasian female wearing a black shirt uniform with eyewear and a black hat. The City of Los Angeles continues.
Fuck, automatic qualification. Next. Hit the trapdoor button. Whoosh. My pronouns are next.
That was the greatest thing. She's
I've
like,
seen that
"Captain,
before. Kamala did that one time too, where they had her like sitting at a boardroom table. She's like, "My name is Kamala Harris. I am the Vice President of the United States. My pronouns are she, her. I am wearing a blue suit. I have this." And you're like, I hate this.
Like, what are we doing?
Why don't you focus on something productive?
Yeah, it's hilarious, but it's not at the same time, right? It's like, and this was going on like while the fires were going, like raging. And people were losing houses, and it wasn't even like after they like stopped them or anything. It's just like things were still happening at that point, and like it's like, what are we doing?
These are the priorities.
It's wild, like in the humanity of everything. Like obviously, regardless of where people are, like I don't have a lot of affinity for California, and I have a lot of strong feelings about it. But at the same time, like these are people. I get it. People are losing houses, and their entire lives are gone. Some people have died, and it's a terrible thing, right? But like on the flip side of the entire thing, I'm just like you guys like voted for, like you brought this upon yourselves, right? To a certain extent, like
yes,
like
and have been
hard
doing that.
Yeah, like I have sympathy for a lot of that stuff, but at the same time, I don't like it's been this entire thing about the water has been a thing for like decades. Like it's not a new thing. It's not like they just voted for it this time. Like they've been actively fighting against themselves because they hate like whoever's trying to be president, or it's a super majority in California, and there's no room for anything but, and like they just brought this on themselves. It's terrible to say, and I'm very sorry for it for a lot of people, but like you fucking did this to yourself. Like I have family in California, up in Bakersfield, which is nowhere near, but like still like like they're the smart ones, I guess. But like like you guys brought this on yourselves. And like it's hard for me to just like be like, oh, like let's get past it. It's like the reason why a lot of people have been coming to Texas, and and I want them to go back, but like as long as they keep voting the way we do here, like, hey, come on down. But it's like it's wild.
I lived there for 25 years. I know that area, and I know how the people think, and they've been voting for incompetence their entire lives. They don't know anything different. They don't know that it could be better. It never crosses their mind that you could actually put someone in there who would make it so that you did take care of the fire mitigation, because it's going to be a problem every year, every summer. It's going to be a problem. So there's a bunch of things you could do to be preventative measures that they don't do. That they choose not to do. And then they spend money on gender studies and drag queen shows and stuff like that. And people go, what the fuck are we doing here? What are the priorities? You could have had the reservoir filled, but you didn't because someone made a calculation, or is it this endangered fish, or what are we doing? It's a deeply unserious form of government when the Democrats get involved, because their negative behavior gets positively reinforced every time people go to the ballot box, because they just vote for these people reflexively and they don't ever question or think it over. And so some of the things could be different. There could be water in the reservoir if you put people in charge who think that that's a priority, not making sure that everybody knows what your pronouns are, because it's just an embarrassment.
Like So I know people that have come from California to Texas, and they usually stop in Austin because Austin's San Francisco 2.0, and it's just like out there. Which those of us that are from here, we don't recognize Austin, even though it's it's the capital, but we don't recognize it as part of Texas usually.
I know. I was there a couple of years ago, and it was a shithole. I mean, and I had lived there before, but it was the downtown was unrecognizable. It was sad and gross.
It's even worse now. So it's rough. So but I'll hear people that come from California and they're like, oh, we were there for like a year and then we just had to move back to California because it's this and that or whatever. I'm just like, man, like you don't, I get it. I mean, there's a lot of stuff here in Texas that are just questionable, like in the law and this and that. I get it, but how could you just want to move back to that shithole? Like, I've been to LA twice recently, and why? Why would you want to just go? I don't understand. It has to be Stockholm syndrome of something.
Dude, I got to tell you this story. I was in college at USC, which is right in downtown LA, right in the hood. We were eating at this restaurant, like an outdoor fast food place where you could sit outside and eat. We were sitting outside, and we watched a van pull up and park right in front of the place. And the driver gets out and goes around the back, opens up the back, and he's like, "Get out, come on." And he pulls all these guys out in these gowns. They're like hospital gowns. And he's like, and he closes up the thing, gets in his van, and just drives off. And there's these 6 mental patients that have just been thrown out on the street. And we're like in the middle of eating. We're like, what are we watching here? This is crazy. They were emptying the nut houses and just dumping people all over town. That's LA. That is legit. I saw it with my own 2 eyeballs. It was crazy town. And that was 1993, 94, 30 years ago. That's 30 years ago. They were making dumb decisions like that. That was closed down all the insane asylums, and Reagan had closed them all down, or these people, they were getting shut down. Either they weren't getting funding or they were getting whatever happened. And they're just like, welp, I guess you guys live here now. And they just threw everybody out and drove off.
I wouldn't doubt it. It's wild, but I mean, so Maui and LA, is it part of the same project, you think? I mean, I know this whole Smart LA 2028 they're trying to get ready for the Olympics and all that kind of stuff, but I mean, I was reading through the documentation for it. Obviously, people are like, oh, it's Smart LA 2028, has nothing to do with whatever. And then you mentioned earlier that they had this whole railway thing that they wanted to build. It was kind of directly online with that. And
the high-speed train. They've been fantasizing about that for a long time. But the most recent plans for it, the LA to San Francisco train, it's it was right where the burn pattern was. And it's again, it goes back to is it incompetence or is it intentional? Because it's oh, we mismanaged the forest and then it caught fire. It's well, why'd you mismanage the forest? If you had been doing that, it wouldn't have happened. So they're putting themselves in a position to fail, and then something natural happens. And in most cases, they don't sit around waiting for organically lightning strikes. If they want to burn a place down, they have their assets go in there and burn the place down. But in advance of that, they always turn off the alarm system, so to speak, by making the policies just nonsensical for logic, completely illogical. We could take care of all the fire mitigation in these hills and clear out all the brush. And they're like, don't do that. And you're like, but it'd be good if we did, so it doesn't catch on fire. They're like, do not do that. Okay, so why? So I mean, it's it's policies, but the policies are destructive, disguised as being mindful of budgets. Well, we had budget constraints, so we had to take 20 million away from the fire department. Very convenient. And then fires rip through. Perfect. Right on schedule.
It's weird when it's environmental stuff. That's typically what it is. Like when it
It's-
comes to the brush and all that stuff, it's like we can't touch it because of the environment, and green knew this and whatever
you know what
that.
they do
It's like,
here with brush, which is genius. They bring in, they did it in our neighborhood at the old place, where they had all this really like hard to get to brush. This company would come in and put a big fence around it, and then they just dump like 200 goats in there, and they just leave the goats in there, and the goats just live in there for like 2 weeks, and they eat all the brush, and then they take the goats and load them up and take the fences down and go on and do it somewhere else.
yeah, I've seen that. Yep, I've seen that in they were clearing the backyards or something like that of some old abandoned houses, and it's like these giant yards that were just overgrown, and they were just throwing goats in there. And I was like, hey, that's cool. We were just like watching them while they were doing it. It took them about a week or so, but yeah, that's very smart. I just don't understand, man. Like it's definitely not done on purpose, because California has so much. Like, what are people paying taxes for out there? Like, I don't understand. Like, they have some of the highest taxes in the entire country.
Highest,
maybe even the world.
13.3%, the highest state tax in the country. And their property taxes go to schools, and the schools are building third bathrooms.
Of course. Makes sense.
Mandating that. Gavin Newsom mandated that. All public schools now have to have third bathrooms everywhere, because, diversity and trans and whatever. Like, you're not going to kick the shit out of the trans kid in that bathroom. Come on. At a public school, come on. You know what I mean? Like, you're like, oh, we're going to put a third bathroom for it to be inclusive. It's 100% where that kid's going to get his ass kicked if it happens. You know what I mean? Like, it's just one retarded idea after another, and they all cost a lot of money. And California sticks it to their taxpayers because they despise them, they hate them, and they wish they would move to Texas. They wish they would. They've got a corporations hamstrung. Like they're. I mean, finally starting to see a couple of them. Like Chevron finally said, "We are out of here. We are out of," and they were born in California. It's Standard Oil West. And they said, we are out of here and we are moving to Houston because California is insane. We can't deal with them anymore. The regulations are out of control. The taxes are out of control. The leadership is suicidal, and everything's way more expensive. Our employees can't buy houses anymore. We're out of here. We're going to Texas. And California has nobody to blame but themselves. I can't believe more companies haven't done that.
So now we're leaving California and all your trans stuff for Houston, where we can help with the child trafficking and all the ports. So let's do that instead. Yeah. It's better.
It's much better.
I was one of the craziest stats that I saw recently. So Houston has the highest rate of Hispanic men converting to Islam, and
what?
And Houston of all places converting to Islam. Radical Islam is what that was. And I was like, wow.
That's my favorite kind of Islam.
I was like, wait, Houston's a shithole. Like, I already know that, but like now you throw Islam into the mix and we're like, man, now we're never really going back to Houston, because Houston's like one of those places where just like 5 years ago, we used to go to Houston and stuff all the time, and has its shitty parts just like everywhere, but like Houston is really turned into like everywhere being shitty now. And then you throw in like migrant stuff, and now this whole radical Islam stuff, and I was like, all right, well, we'll never ever go back down south anymore. So we'll just go to San Antonio and then cut the rest of the Texas off, and then that's it. So it's wild. I don't know how that happened, but
I like the hills of San Antonio. It's nice.
Yeah. Yeah, it's been a while. We had some, it's nothing compared to you, but like some crazy snow out here and stuff. So everybody loses their mind out here when it rains. So you can just imagine the snow. So wild. But here's this thing I wanted to read. So Smart LA 2028, getting ready for the Olympics and all that kind of stuff. And we're talking about the railways and all this stuff and how they want to do to LA what they're trying to do with Maui. I have a friend that's an LA sheriff. Second day that the fires were going on, we have like a little Discord channel where we chat about things, whatever. And he was like, "Hey, I just arrested two guys this morning." And I was like, "Oh shit, like, you know what happened?" Because he usually tells me what all this stuff out there because he's like in LA and Skid Row and all that stuff, and he has some crazy stories. And he's like, I arrested these two guys that were fist fighting in the middle of the street, like while houses were burning around them, like their whole blocks were up in flames and stuff. And I was like, what the hell? Like,
what were they fighting about?
So he arrested this one guy and he had him in the back of his car and they were driving to the station. And he's like, well, what the fuck are you guys fighting for? Like, you know, like everything's burning in all these neighborhoods and shit.
Right.
And that guy was a homeowner that was like, they were out in front of his house. And he said that the guy that he was fighting was an investor trying to buy his property off of him while his house was still burning. He was like watching his house burn down. And this guy was walking down the block, like up and down the block, trying to find people. And like, they were just trying to buy property with people. And then, so the other guy, they get to the station and he's talking to the other guy, which is the investor. And he's like, what the fuck are you doing? Like, you know, he's like, look, like I bought a bunch of property off a bunch of people that day. And he's like, if I didn't do it, there's other people that are doing the exact same thing all over the city. And if I didn't get to it first, they would have gotten to it. And I was just like, what the fuck? Like, these guys are just walking around buying property from people. And I was like, all right.
That's gross, man.
I was like, I hope he got his ass beat. He's like, yeah, he got his ass smoked that day. But like, you know, he was still going up and down looking for people. He had, from what he said, he had already bought a bunch of property off people. And I don't know how, like, you know, but I guess like handshake agreements or whatever was going on. But so that was going on already, you know, plus, you know, a lot of stuff he's talking about, like people up in the hills that were setting fires. Some were homeless people, some were not. And then that one guy, they got arrested for trying to light this house on fire, and then they let him go, saying that there wasn't enough evidence when they had just caught him doing it. Like all the neighbors in that freaking neighborhood, they saw him. He was trying to light some house on fire. And there was like some guys that were working outside, like on the lawn or something, and they spotted him and they were like, hey, what are you doing down there? Whatever. And then they all freaking surrounded him and they waited for the cops to get there and they arrested him. And the next morning they said that he wasn't going to be kept or like arrested for arson or whatever, but he was being arrested because he had like a warrant out for his arrest for something else or something like that. He wasn't homeless. You could tell he wasn't homeless. He was wearing like black slacks or black freaking cargo pants and like a black t-shirt. So like something was going on. Like he was told to go there or, you know, something like that. So
yeah, it's one thing if you're like a crazy mentally ill person that gets dropped out of a truck in your white gown, like I saw, and you go decide that you're going to go light a trash dumpster on fire because you're cold or crazy or both. It's another thing that in the middle of one of these firestorms, you're out there additionally lighting fire. Like you're like a what? Like a closeted pyromaniac who just came out of a closet at this time, or are you being made to do this? I mean, in being made to do it could come in a variety of fashions. Are you being paid to do it? Are you being forced to do it? Are you being mind controlled into doing it? Are you a follower and just like think it's, you know, are you like kind of a little broken and looking for some excitement? I mean, like, but it's being made to happen. I mean, because you can also see those maps where you see three of them starting at the same time.
Yeah.
And, you know, let's not discount directed energy. That's a thing. It's a real thing. People have had questions about that in Maui. We have the blue roof conversation. We have the blue trash can in Pacific Palisades. Everyone's going, well, what the fuck is this? Why didn't it burn? Why didn't it melt? It's plastic. It's blue. So, like, you know, I mean,
Biden even saying it. Don't forget to paint your roof blue.
Don't forget to paint your roof blue. Yeah. Who said that? Didn't Biden? Yeah. So you again, like you can fit us for a tinfoil hat if you choose, but like don't discount these rather unusual coincidences that keep popping up over and over again, because there might be something to it, because there is.
Yeah. Yeah, it's crazy. So last two things here before I let you go. Let me just read this line from the documentation for Smart LA 2028. It's right at the top of the documentation. So this is the city of Los Angeles envisions a highly digital and connected city in 2028. Los Angeles residents will experience an improved quality of life by leveraging technology to meet urban challenges. No longer the car capital of the world, thanks Gavin Newsom, residents will choose how they wish to get around LA using a single digital payment platform with choices like renovated metro rail and bus systems or microtransit choices. So that main line right there is digital payment platform, single digital payment platform.
CBDC.
Yeah. So there's that. So that's great for everybody in LA. Good job. So it's wild. It's
also, since we haven't mentioned this, I'll throw this out here because it's relevant as all the other reasons that fires start. You know, smart meters are a thing as well, and there was a real disturbing video I saw of a lady who's in front of her house, or someone was talking about the house, saying that this house here didn't burn and it doesn't have a smart meter, but in the back of the house, in the back of the property, there's a guest house that had been built fairly recently, and it did have a smart meter, and it was burned to the ground. And all the other houses around had smart meters. They were burned to the ground. Her house didn't, but her addition did, and it was gone. Something to consider.
For sure.
And you have a hard time opting out of those too. I mean, you have to really kind of catch them there when they're putting them on. They'll, you know, so it's like evidence, you know, you just lay out all these possible things. And natural causes too. Like maybe it's natural causes. I know that the winds get crazy there because I live there. And when you have a fire, it whips them up even, you know, becomes like a feedback loop and they get faster. But again, this is an August, September sort of event, not a January.
Wild. Yeah. I mean, I don't know too much about the weather out there, but it's hard to fathom how like the fires like jump freeways, you know what I mean? And like because of the winds, or they just jump like over streets and stuff. And I'm like, whew, okay, well, whatever. But last one for you here. So you're there in Colorado, right? So what's the whole thing with like the whole migrant thing there? Is that legit out there? What's going on? Like we hear all this stuff like in the news, but I mean, it's hard to tell. I mean, I know for sure living on the border my whole life, what's going on, but like to tell people, they're just like, it's not happening. Like the mayor even said it wasn't happening. Like, well, you know, what's going on with the whole thing there?
They just closed that apartment building down yesterday.
Yeah.
They just closed it down because there's a huge problem there. Yeah, it's being made to happen in the city, and Denver is super woke, and it's a blue city in the middle of a red state, essentially. But because the blue city has all the population, it votes blue and it sort of acts blue. But outside of Denver, everything is like red, you know, like in the sense that there's a lot of land, there's a lot of people in the mountains, there's a lot of rich people in the mountains, and they're all about protecting their money. So they're not necessarily social justice warriors when they've got like 6 mansions and one of them's in Aspen. You know, they're like, I want somebody who's protecting my investments and making sure my business is run properly. So it's an unusual state in that regard. And I'm outside of like Denver, the city. I'm down the street from Columbine, which is another sort of event and another whole story we'll do another time. But you know that they've got problems in downtown Denver because they've got a mayor who thinks like the rest of these morons that want to prioritize migrants, and there's a big business behind that, but migrants at the expense of everybody else. I think they view this as a potential new voting bloc that can vote their way in the future and keep their sort of people in power. If you're going to give them all these goodies for coming, then they're going to be inclined to vote for you. So part of it is just like, yeah, send them here because we need them to continue. We'll give them a bunch of money and we'll take care of them. But what they do is they alienate the people that are currently here who've been dependent on the system, like the Black community. And they go, what are you doing? Like, you're taking better care of them than you are of us. And they're like, that's because we hate you and we like them now.
Yeah.
So that's kind of where this is going. This is happening it's not limited to Denver. It's happening in Chicago and New York, all over the places where the incumbent group of the needy beggars for the government freebies are pissed because the new batch of people looking to get government funds for doing nothing are intruding on their grift, and so they're at odds with each other now. That's basically what it is, and everyone else is watching this going, you're all disgusting, get a job.
For real. Yeah. Well, I mean, I've been trying to follow as closely as I can. I was trying to think too the other day. I was like, man, I wish I really kind of knew what was going on out there. I don't know anybody. But then I was like, wait a minute. Like, you're out there. I should probably ask you, but I just never got around to it. Like, what was going on? But I was like, I know something's happening because we see all these videos going on and people that are like there taking videos. And I know how,
it can be fake. Anything could be made to look one way when it's really not, of course, and they do that all the time. But in this particular case, no, there's really a problem. You can go down there and see it with your eyes. That's the thing about the homeless situation, is that you can't really hide it very well. It just, people notice it. And whether we're talking about Denver or California, which has 50% of all the homeless people in the United States are in California, it's a huge industry, and they don't want to give up on that. And the people that are running it because the government is aligned with that sort of thinking. It's just such a backwards way. It's such a stupid way of running a state. But they've been doing it for so long that the people are like hostages. You said Stockholm syndrome. It's what it is. It's exactly what it is. They love their captors because they can't imagine life without them. Just a slave mentality. And I say that as a Californian who lived there for long enough.
Yeah.
Almost 35 years. Yeah. So 25 in Los Angeles or the surrounding areas. So yeah.
Yeah. I don't know what the whole, I mean, I know here in Dallas, it's being homeless obviously is not illegal anywhere, but sleeping in public here is very illegal now. So, we used to have in the spaghetti bowls or the highways underneath. A lot of the highways here are not on the ground, so they're lifted, and it's highways going back and forth. So underneath there was a whole lot of homeless encampments and stuff. But then one day, all of a sudden, they all disappeared. I don't know where all the homeless people went, but I don't see too much of it anymore. But it's pretty wild. I'm pretty sure there's some designated area for them all, but yeah, who knows? But it's crazy, man. I don't know. This year's already shaping up to be probably one of the craziest so far. We're only 14 days in, so we're definitely going to be keeping an eye out, especially what is it, Monday is when Trump's in?
Yeah.
I'm curious to see what the inauguration is going to be like. Hopefully that nothing crazy goes on there. But I mean, we didn't even get to a whole bunch of things that I wanted to talk about. Drones is one of them. The CEO assassination stuff. President of Mexico, freaking Sheinbaum. That's a whole nother thing as well. And Julian Assange also. So he went free and stuff. So there was at least 4 topics that we were going to get into, but I had to try
to do it next time.
force our way through. But
yeah.
So we'll see what happens on Monday. And so how's the documentaries going? Everything? Are you still working on those? Is that
put it on hold because I wound up having to move to Vegas to take care of my mom. She got real sick and died from cancer. So I was there, and I put that on hold. And then while I was doing that, I made an arrangement to buy Activist Post, and we launched that on January 1st, or relaunched it. Launched a new website and under new management. But Activist Post has been around for 15 years, doing really republishing outstanding articles about the type of topics that we're into. And so I was approached by the owners in July and asked if, they said they'd been doing it a while and they were looking to do other things, and if I were interested, how interested I would be. And I bought it with Bitcoin. I bought the company with Bitcoin. And so it started, we built a brand new website and made sure it works really well on mobile. And so I'm asking people that are interested in getting their news, here's another source for you. Great articles from people whose names you recognize, or you've seen their shows or read their books or whatever. And it's just one of those things that right time, right sort of chain of events, and sort of the next evolution of like writing books and doing podcasts. And now there's the news, and it's Activist Post and Natural Blaze for the alternative health. So yeah, that's what 2025 is. You're saying, yeah, it's been a crazy 14 days. It's been a crazy 14 days for me too, as in my new job as editor. So I now have a very, not that I didn't already, but hour to hour relationship with the news, which is maybe not good for me, but that's what it is. So, I have to kind of always be following this stuff and making decisions on what articles are going up and what podcasts are going up. So if anyone is interested, go to activistpost.com or get it on your cell phone and bookmark it. I didn't make an app. Too much. I didn't want to centralize control into the hands of Apple or Google. They could turn it off. They've done that before with other like Zero Hedge. So I didn't want to do that. So we just say, pull it up on a browser on your phone, save it and bookmark it, and then just try it out. See what you think. Cause the articles are fantastic. And the writers are, it's like getting your news from the future, you'd be so well informed. Yeah. It's just the opposite of the mainstream media. You hear the articles, you decide how you feel about it. I don't care.
Yeah.
I know you'll be frustrated. I know one thing that you'll feel is like, these goddamn people are at it again. I know that you'll read the news and feel that way, but as far as like how everybody, you make up your mind. We're not trying to sell it. So
yeah, no, that's cool though. Shoot.
Thanks for having me back on, man. I always enjoy it. We've been doing this for years, so I enjoy our conversation.
Yeah, no, I appreciate you taking time, obviously out of your busy schedule now. So good luck with the new site. We'll have everything linked in the show notes for everybody. So I'll definitely I got it pulled up right here. So definitely look through it today. And while I'm supposed to be at work and stuff, I'll be cruising the net, taking a look at it and see what's going on.
Yeah.
Yeah. All right, man. Well, I'll let you go. I don't want to take up too much of your time. Appreciate you stopping by again. Stay safe out there, and we'll catch up again. Hopefully nothing too shitty goes on throughout the year. So
yeah,
stay safe out there. All right, brother. Have a good one, man.
See ya.
Well, everybody, appreciate you guys stopping in again. Crazy times last year. Obviously, this year's just getting started, but it already feels like we've been through a whole bunch. So, yeah, everybody keep your head on a swivel. I appreciate everybody stopping in once again. Thanks to Charlie for stopping by. Obviously, he's got a whole lot going on now. He's got a lot on his plate. Picked up a new website and editor-in-chief and all that good stuff. So definitely hit up the website, activistpost.com. Economy stuff, activism, health, tech, crypto, podcasts, and a bunch of other stuff. So you guys stop in, donate if you can, buy some merch if you can't. It all helps out. So we'll be back next week as well. Again, Like I mentioned, we're going to be rocking and rolling. We've been trying to hit every week so far, and I've been trying to keep that up since the beginning of December. So we're going to keep rocking and rolling with some more shows. So I like that screen. There you go. Yeah. So you guys check in again. If you guys aren't already subscribers, you already know where to find us. I'll have everything linked in the show notes down below. So that's Spotify, Google, Apple Podcasts, iHeartRadio, Amazon Music, at Truth Defender Podcasts. If you guys like what we do here and you're feeling generous, as always, please share the show with a friend, family member, or colleagues. Just watch out with work, like I've always said. Questions for myself or our guests or topic recommendations, shoot us an email at thetruthDefender1776@gmail.com. All the links to our socials are down below in the show notes: Twitter, Getter, which we don't really use all that much, Instagram, Facebook, Rumble, X. I should call it, not Twitter. I should probably get that updated. We also have a link to the link tree as well. We have all the shows on there, everything that we do. I even have my personal Instagram on there, which I don't know how I feel about that, but it's there. You can kind of see what we do on a day-to-day basis outside of here. So it's nothing to do with the show or anything like that, but that's always there. So everybody enjoy the rest of your week. We'll be back next week as well. I think I'll be doing a solo show next week. There's some very interesting things that I want to talk about surrounding like child trafficking and all that kind of stuff. So there's kind of an update. We'll have that for you guys next week as well. So everybody stay safe this week. Have a great weekend. We'll catch you next week for next week's show. And as always, remember God, family, Texas. Have a great one.